Cerebrospinal fluid, CSF. A vital component of the central nervous system. Introduction. Cerebrospinal fluid is a clear, colorless liquid that circulates around the brain and spinal cord. It serves several critical functions. Protection, acts as a cushion, protecting the brain and spinal cord from injuries. Nutrient delivery, carries nutrients and oxygen to the brain and spinal cord. Waste removal, removes waste products from the brain and spinal cord. Maintenance of intracranial pressure, helps maintain a constant pressure within the skull. CSF is produced by specialized cells called choroid plexuses, which are located in the ventricles of the brain. The fluid is then circulated throughout the central nervous system before being reabsorbed into the bloodstream. How is it used? Cerebrospinal fluid CSF analysis may be used to help diagnose a wide variety of diseases and conditions affecting the central nervous system. Infectious diseases, CSF tests can determine if an infection is caused by bacteria, viruses, fungi, or parasites, aiding in diagnosis of conditions like meningitis and encephalitis. Bleeding, internal bleeding within the brain or skull can be detected through CSF analysis. Inflammatory diseases, autoimmune disorders and conditions that destroy myelin, such as multiple sclerosis, can be investigated by examining CSF for signs of inflammation or antibody production. Tumors, both primary and metastatic brain tumors can be detected through CSF analysis. When is CSF analysis ordered? Medical history. A person's past medical conditions or symptoms may suggest the need for CSF analysis. Trauma, head or spinal cord injuries can necessitate CSF testing to assess for damage. Cancer, individuals with cancer, especially those at risk for CNS metastasis, may undergo CSF analysis to check for tumor spread. Signs and symptoms, symptoms suggestive of CNS involvement, such as headache, fever, altered mental status, or neurological deficits, can prompt CSF analysis. Signs and symptoms indicating CSF analysis. Depending on a person's medical history, may order CSF analysis when they exhibit some combination of the following symptoms. Mental and neurological symptoms. Changes in mental status and consciousness include confusion, disorientation, or altered levels of alertness. Sudden, severe, or persistent headache. A headache that is particularly intense or doesn't subside can be a sign of a serious issue. Stiff neck, difficulty moving the neck can be associated with meningitis. Confusion, hallucinations, or seizures may indicate neurological dysfunction. Muscle weakness or lethargy, fatigue, a sudden onset of weakness or fatigue. Nausea severe or prolonged, persistent nausea can be a symptom of a CNS condition. Specific symptoms. Dizziness, can be a symptom of various CNS conditions. Difficulties with speech, may indicate a problem with the brain's language centers. Difficulty walking, lack of coordination, can be associated with neurological disorders. Mood swings, depression, changes in mood can sometimes be a sign of a neurological condition. Symptoms in infants. Irritability, infants may become more fussy or irritable. Crying when held, holding an infant may cause discomfort due to body stiffness. Body stiffness, this can be a sign of meningitis. Refusal to feed, difficulty feeding can be associated with illness. Bulging fontanelles, a bulging fontanelle, the soft spot on the top of the head, can be a sign of increased pressure within the skull. Physical characteristics of cerebrospinal fluid. CSF is a clear, colorless liquid that circulates around the brain and spinal cord. It has several distinct physical characteristics. Clarity: normal CSF is typically crystal clear. Any cloudiness or turbidity can indicate the presence of blood cells, bacteria, or other substances. Color: CSF should be colorless. A yellow or greenish tint may suggest the presence of blood cells or bilirubin, a breakdown product of hemoglobin. Pressure: the pressure of CSF can be measured during a lumbar puncture. Elevated pressure may indicate increased intracranial pressure due to conditions such as brain swelling, hemorrhage, or meningitis. Chemical tests on cerebrospinal fluid. Glucose: CSF contains glucose. A low glucose level can indicate an infection, such as meningitis or encephalitis, especially when accompanied by other abnormal findings. Protein: the protein content of CSF is typically low. Elevated protein levels can be a sign of inflammation, blood-brain barrier disruption, or the presence of a tumor. Lactate: lactate is a byproduct of cellular metabolism. Elevated lactate levels can indicate bacterial meningitis or brain ischemia. Oligoclonal bands: these are bands of immunoglobulin G-IgG that are unique to the central nervous system. The presence of oligoclonal bands in CSF can be indicative of autoimmune diseases such as multiple sclerosis. Microscopic examination of cerebrospinal fluid. Cells: red blood cells RBCs. The presence of RBCs in CSF indicates bleeding into the central nervous system. This can be caused by traumatic brain injury, stroke, or a tumor. White blood cells WBCs. An increased number of WBCs in CSF is a sign of inflammation. The type of WBCs present can help differentiate between various conditions. For example, a predominance of neutrophils suggests a bacterial infection, while a predominance of lymphocytes is more common in viral infections or autoimmune diseases. Other elements: bacteria. The presence of bacteria in CSF is a strong indicator of bacterial meningitis. Fungi. Fungal infections of the central nervous system are less common but can be diagnosed by identifying fungal elements in CSF. Parasites. Some parasitic infections can affect the central nervous system. Crystals. Crystals can sometimes be seen in CSF, particularly in cases of urate gout or oxalate nephropathy. CSF tests for infectious diseases. Culture. CSF samples can be cultured on various media to grow and identify bacteria, fungi, or parasites. This is a common test for diagnosing meningitis and encephalitis. Gram stain. A gram stain can help differentiate between gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. This can narrow down the possible pathogens and guide antibiotic treatment. Acid-fast stain. This stain is used to detect acid-fast bacteria, such as Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which causes tuberculosis. India ink preparation. This test is used to visualize the capsule of Cryptococcus neoformans, a type of fungus that can cause meningitis. Latex agglutination tests. These tests can rapidly detect antigens of certain pathogens, such as Streptococcus pneumoniae and Neisseria meningitidis, in CSF. Thank you.